Okay, I think that's on. Yeah, that's on now. So if you didn't hear me a second ago, make a new friend. We're going to start in a minute or so. But I've been doing that since the second GrrCON, telling people to meet somebody new, shake their hands next to them. You guys are very quiet for making new friends. Okay, so if you guys are here for cyber, talking about kill chains, you're in the wrong room. If you're here to learn about threat intelligence and take something back to work to start implementing Monday morning to start building a threat intelligence program, you're definitely in the right place. I recognize a few people in the audience, so some of the stuff you see in here will look familiar because I've worked with you in the last 18 months since I started doing this stuff. So real quick, my name is Chris. My contact info is on the screen. I'm a graduate student 5 weeks away from my master's degree in cybersecurity at the University of Maryland. I have a bachelor's in IA from Eastern Michigan University. I work for a large unnamed company because they don't want me to say the name, so it's okay. And I've been doing threat intelligence for about 18 months now, at least paid. So 20 years in the industry, like I said, graduate student, working on 3 master's degrees. I get the first one in about 5 weeks. I've given talks on human trafficking, Linux hardening, Linux hardening. First talk I ever gave was here at GrrCON. Actually, it was my second talk technically, but same concept. It was hardening Linux systems for pen testers. So basics, what are you trying to do? What problem are you trying to solve? There's 2. You're trying to make it so your technical teams can actually do their jobs more efficiently by having good indicators to go hunt for in their network or in your network. So your SOC analysts who do the detection portion, you're trying to give them more power to find the problems as they happen. From the strategic side, you're trying to make it so the business can make better strategic decisions. Now, getting that information up to the executives to do that is a little bit harder sometimes. You know, everybody has egos, they all come into play. I've got a very large one and I'm just a line worker, so whatever. What threat intelligence is not empire building. You're not here to go out and try to create the biggest SOC ever. You're not here to go out and say, every single thing that's wrong, we have to go drop everything to fix. You're not trying to sit there and say, we need a larger budget just because we want a larger budget to hire more staff and have more toys to play with. It's not another marketing buzzword. I really like Enterprise Security Weekly, but if I hear John Strand say it's a marketing buzzword one more time, I'm going to start screaming at the radio. Yes, there is a lot of marketing around it. Yes, people are playing buzzword bingo with it, but there's more to threat intelligence than just being a buzzword. And it's not just doing OSINT. I love OSINT. I spend a lot of time doing OSINT. I've had jobs describe me in the past as he's really good at stalking people on LinkedIn, or he's really good at stalking people on Facebook. Oh, you've got a social media person you want to stalk? Go call Chris. It's not just doing OSINT. What it is it's a lot of heavy research. You have to know stuff as it happens. So if WannaCry is breaking out, you can't just go and read 1 or 2 little articles that say, oh, there's this thing called WannaCry and it's using this. You actually have to be able to provide IOCs, indicators of compromise, so you can start pushing that to your intel or to your detection people so they can start looking for it in the network. while at the same time writing up a report to go up to executive management to explain this is the problem, here's why we're impacted by it, and this is what we have to do to fix it. So answer questions quickly. Old TV show, anybody recognize it? A couple people. Okay. If you haven't ever seen The Prisoner, it's really good. It's about a military analyst who, basically a spy who quits. He says, that's it, I'm done. I quit for cause. And they end up kidnapping him, taking him to this place called The Village, where what they end up doing is nothing more than 18 hours of, a little bit more than 18, but there's 18 one-hour-long episodes where they're basically trying to break the guy to figure out why he quit. Anyways, definitions. Threat intelligence deals with three things. It deals with data. What is data? It's a fact. It's something that you can measure. It's something that you can see, touch. It's something tangible. Now, we're talking cyber, so that's, yes, everybody take a drink. We're talking cyber, so it's more than just sitting there and saying, I can go over and pick this up. It's an artifact or something that you can point to and say, this exists. And whether it's on your network or not, this exists. You build context around that, and you get to what's called information. Okay, and the information is, this is what I know about something. I've got a really good example of this coming up in a minute. This is what I know about something. I can take this piece of information and decide if it's something I can do an action on, right? Basics, you gotta basically do the basics. You have to have a plan before you start. If you're not doing a plan, you've already skipped step one, you're going to collapse. From there, you collect your information, you collect your data, processing, go through and do whatever process that you do. You know, that's validating it, looking for secondary sources, tertiary sources, analyze it. Does this really matter to me? Is this something I actually care about? All right. An IP address, or the website api.ipiffy.com is a program that a lot of companies, or not a lot of companies, but a lot of other programs use. It's a little site, you know, it's a little API call. Goes out and finds your IP address. Do I really care about that in my environment? The answer is maybe, right? Is it a strong indicator on its own? No. But it's something I have to analyze to decide whether or not it's something I want. Then you have to disseminate it, you know, share it out. We're going to see a more detailed version of the cycle in a minute, but this is your basic intelligence cycle. So, data, where do you get it? Everybody, when they start a threat intelligence program, the first thing they want to do is go out and sign up with FireEye or Dell SecureWorks or Threat Connect or Virus Total Intelligence, so VTI. There's a lot of people out there that are selling you data. They will try to tell you it is intelligence, but all they're giving you is indicators, IP addresses, domain names, hashes, maybe some TTPs, right? Techniques, tactics, and processes. They might give you some of those. You don't know how that plays in your environment. You don't know if that is actually intelligence or not. It's just data at this point. So you need to go a little bit beyond that. So where do you get your data from? Well, you want to get your data from your DNS logs, which is probably one of the best places to get it from, because DNS will show you everywhere people are going. The proxy logs, again, it's going to show you where people are going, where things are failing. You want to look at your firewall logs, same reasons. It'll show you the things that are dropped. You want to see your mail logs. Right, and we're going to look at something from one of my servers, one of my private servers, one of my personal servers. It's a little lamp box. But where to look? It's the logs. Every time you got a log, you go and look at your logs, right? Reported problems. Your ticket system should be your bread and butter. You should be doing ticket reviews. If your analyst had a ticket, right? If your SOC has a ticket, you want to look at those tickets and see what happened and what the information in that ticket is, because you might start seeing multiple tickets that are spanning the same type of problem. The same goes for your help desk tickets, because who are the users going to call? They're not going to call the SOC, they're going to call the help desk. And you're going to start seeing, hey, why does this user keep getting the same virus over and over and over again? So I said we're going to see some logs. I hope this is big enough. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's really small. So that's not the right screen. That's not the right screen. Okay, so this is from my mail server. It's a Linux box. It's your classic LAMP setup. It's got my mail server on it. And it's got a blog on it. So people are trying to log in, right? And this is the automated response I get when somebody logs in and fails. Somebody named admin is trying to log in and say, hey, I want to log into your box. They've logged in multiple times, failed the admin password multiple times. Do I care about that? Do any of you care about that? You don't have enough context to shake your head yes or no, because I'm seeing people shaking their heads yes. There's not enough context here. I've deleted the admin account from that box. Admin is not an existing username. And if it's an admin password, if it's doing admin and password, that tells me it's a script kiddie or somebody else using a large password list trying to pop one instance. Now, yes, it's WordPress, but like I said, I've deleted the account. It's not an existing account. I don't care about the failed admin logins. So then Radis, that's my Twitter handle. That's also the name of the domain. Do I care about that one? Yes, I put a little bit higher confidence on that one of being something I want to look at, because now it's not just a case of somebody saying, I'm going here and I'm looking at your site and trying to log in. I'm doing a little bit of work to try to either log in as what I think is going to be your username, or thinking that I'm stupid enough to actually use my domain name as a username. So that's a little bit more important. But the bottom one is the one I actually care about. And I kind of had to fake this one last night because I didn't actually have any. I've had some, but they're trying to log in as the name that's on the site that the blog articles post as. Now that's not the username to log in with, but it doesn't mean that they don't try anyways. And I've seen people trying to do password resets on that name, and it's like, yeah, that name doesn't exist, so good luck, right? That's the displayed portion of my name, but that's not the username. But that's still something I want to take a look at, because that means somebody scraped my site, took the time to actually do some recon, and now they're trying to actually get in. Looking at the different failed logins and dates, times, I put them together, and I'll explain this in a second why they're put together. But my concern levels, right? So the higher the number, the more concerned I am. I'm not concerned about the admin person trying to log in. I'm a little bit more concerned about somebody trying to log in as Radis. Colfink, that's just another person's, as far as I can tell, that's just somebody's password list and the name they used for it. But then I've got the string down here of people trying to log in as the displayed username. Now I care. Now I'm going to go and try to find who you are. Going back to context, and we talked a little bit about it already. Jake will sit there and tell you I say this way too much. The sky is blue. Now, this is a picture from June, so I'm giving you some context around this. I wanted to take a picture today, but if you've been outside in the last hour, it's gray and rainy, so it didn't quite work. The sky is blue. Yeah, there's some clouds in it, but does that give you enough information to make any kind of actionable decision? People are shaking their heads no. And it's not, because there's not enough information there. It might be a nice day. It might be nice and warm. Now that's facing west in June. Is that a little bit better to give you information on what you need to know? It's clear to the horizon. I've got a couple hours of nice weather at least. So I don't need to take an umbrella. I don't need to take a raincoat. Maybe a windbreaker, because you can't see if there's any wind there. And there's no flags. Anybody ever see this before? Yep, pyramid of pain. God, the stock's going way too quick. So a lot of people think, okay, trivial, easy, simple, annoying, challenging, tough. And they think, oh, well, that's how it's trivial for me to get the hashes out of the systems. It's easy for me to get the IP addresses. It's simple for me to get domain names, right? It's a little harder to get network artifacts. It's more challenging for the tools, and it's hardest for the TTPs. Well, what people don't realize with this is it works the other way too. For a challenger, or for the attackers, it's easy to change your hash. Jake Williams has a video of his daughter changing the hashes on malware by just hitting the F5 key. IP addresses. It's easy for an attacker to change IP addresses, especially if they have a large botnet to work with. Domain names are fairly simple. Again, it goes back to what's your botnet look like? Changes the domain name. Use DGAs. Changes the domain name. Fairly easy. Network artifacts. It's harder for them to change what's being left behind on the machines that they compromise. Challenging, it's hard for somebody to change their tools. Leopards don't like changing spots. Hackers don't like changing tools. Everybody in here has their favorite tool set, right? Same tools that you always go to. What if they no longer existed tomorrow? What if you were told you had to change those tomorrow? And then again, changing your techniques, your tools, your processes, it's just really hard. So information, the tool I use the most is Excel. It's got a lot of different options. There's other tools out there. There's things called tips. We'll talk about a tip in a second. Tools are really what you need to use as a threat intelligence person. So if you have nothing else, right? If you don't have anything more than just a SOC today with no intelligence working with it, all they really need to start with is Excel. You're going to get these giant worksheets of doom, like a giant notebook of doom. It's going to be a lot of data that's just pushed into one spot, and then you can just change how it displays, right? And it's up to you to collect what you want. In this case, we're looking at date, a made-up ticket number, what kind of indicator it is from the ticket, and the IOC associated with it. So is it the actual MD5 hash? Is it the IP address? Is it the user agent? I can do a lot with that inside Excel. Now, a lot of people like to use tips, and there's a couple free ones out there. There's MISP, there's CRITs, and the new one, Yeti. But really, it's just a giant Excel spreadsheet. It just has different ways of displaying it. It's kind of more like an Access database on the back end. It'll pull out links, it'll let you do link analysis, and you can tie things together. And then I tried to have a MISP server set up. It's a pain. I actually had people from MISP to actually help me set it up, and I still couldn't get the stuff put into it. But that's because I'm a grad student, and 90% of my time outside of work is taken up at school. But in their case, so you've got linked domains to different events. They've got linked IP addresses to different events. And it makes it really easy to see, especially if they do a visualization portion, which CRITs, MISP, and Yeti do. It makes it really easy to see what's going on and how things are interrelated. And that's where you're going to start really knowing your attackers, by seeing things that are interrelated. If you can't see the small text, it says that this is a partial screenshot from the MISP Git repository. And you want to fill this information, you want to fill your tools with the free stuff. And apparently my remote just died. So, really good place to get your free information, especially if you're using your own ticket system to get your data. Build the context around it. Use Whois. Use the shadow server Whois, which provides a little bit more information. It'll give you the ASN numbers, so you can start seeing if there's large networks using BGP that are all used by the same attacker. Tech Defense is a nice little Python script that basically you give the IOC that you're looking for, usually an IP address, and it will go and search VirusTotal for that information for you. Build your own tools. Figure out what you need to use. Find the things that you do on a regular basis that you can automate and build tools around, and start using those to get your information around the data. If you've got a LDAP server, and one of the things that you're looking at a lot is compromised credentials, write a script that goes out and checks to see if those are valid credentials, not just sit there and do everything by hand and search through LDAP user by user. Automate that. Use your own tool to build that. MITRE ATTCK. Has anybody seen that? Anybody been to that site? Jake, I know you have. One, anybody else? Two, a couple. It's a great site. It's done by MITRE. They provide you a lot of good value there. You can go and look up the tools that are being used. So let's say you're wondering who's using Mimikatz, right? You can go to their site, you can type Mimikatz into their search bar, and it'll show you the different threat actors that they know that use it. So you can start seeing who might be attacking you, right? Another one I've seen in the past, I'm trying to think. You know, who likes to live off the land? Who's been using PowerShell? And it'll provide you the different threat actors and sometimes the actual tool, like the malware that they use to get into the network and correlate things back and forth and start building up. Hey, so if you got this, look for this. If you got this, go look for this, right? And you're building out things, additional IOCs for your detection team to go look for. Great site. If you haven't used it, if you haven't played around on it, do it. They've got an attack matrix on there, which gives you different types of attacks that are used throughout by all the attackers. And that works great if you got a hunt team, or you're trying to build a hunt team too. That gives them a place to start from. Information. I don't, for the most part, like paying for context. I don't like the majority of data brokers out there because they're either taking open source feeds and reselling them. So if you're looking at ransomware.ch, they provide a lot of feeds for free that are basically your domain names and IP addresses of different ransomware sites. They've got the Zeus tracker and a few other ones. I've seen vendors take that exact list and then sell it to you. Right? So be careful what you're buying. I don't like paying for stuff I can go get for free. It might be good in the very beginning to get an idea where to go look and some things to go look for. But if you're going to pay for things, these are the ones I recommend. Shodan. Okay, who in here hasn't played with Shodan? Okay, so everybody knows what Shodan is. It's great to see what your external footprint is, and then start doing the work with your external footprint. Anybody know about DHS's vulnerability scanning? Okay, DHS provides a free service. Well, they will scan your entire net block. You have to sign paperwork to get them to do it, but you sign paperwork and they'll scan your entire network. It's called cyber hygiene. And they will come out once a month and scan your entire net block range, looking for CVEs that they see in your environment that they think actually work. Right? So that's one that I'd pay for that I didn't put on the screen. Maltego, it's especially great for link analysis, especially when you start transforming. It's kind of a crutch. I've gotten away from using it more than I used to, because everything I can do in Maltego I can do by hand. Maltego's a little faster, but there's a few things that I can't get transforms for that I have to go add in anyways. So, but it's worth it. It's worth the price, especially when you need to present a graphic to somebody and say, this is what we're seeing. These are how things are tied together, how they're interrelated. Another source I definitely recommend buying into are the industry SOCs. So FSSOC, FISOC, healthcare SOC, which is HSSOC, I think, or ISOC. So if they have an industry ISOC group, right, pay for it, get into that. Because that's going to be a vetted trust group that you can share indicators with. And they'll tell you what they're seeing, but you can tell them what you're seeing. And it's not a case of everybody's out for themselves. This is a case of using the tide to raise all the ships, right? Attackers are there because it's easy. If we make it harder by working together and sharing our data, it's a little bit harder for them. I said we see it again, information. Basically, you've got the plan cycle, you've got your collect, you've got your processing, you've got your analysis, and your dissemination, right? But the red lines are your feedback loop. Hey, I've collected data based on this plan. Is this the right plan? Are we looking at the right things? Are we going down the right path? You'd be surprised at the number of times where I started going through the collection phase and it's like, yeah, we're chasing the wrong rabbit hole. We need to like back out and go over this other one here and rework the plan. Processing, start processing stuff. Oh look, I've got Google.com, OpenDNS.com, IPIFE, and NTP, or pool.ntp.org as indicators of this malware. Because when I ran the malware through my toolbox, it came back with network connection to these. Are you collecting the right things there? Is that the right things to be looking at? And the answer to those are no, because those are all sites that people actually have real use for, right? When you're doing the analysis, when you're sitting there and you're going through everything, go back. Hey, did we process this properly? Did we miss something? Is there something else that we should have processed instead? Dissemination. You don't just send a report up to upper management and say, hey, this is what I've got. No, you ask them, did that work for you? Was there something else that you needed to see? Is there something else that you need to know about that wasn't covered? And more times than not, they'll say yes, and they'll have to either do an amendum or a deeper report, right? And it's a constant feedback loop, right? So based on real-world experience, I was at an event with the CISO 2 weeks ago. It was during the whole time where the Wi-Fi crack thing came out, and I had sent a brief up to management the day before on crack. And I happened to be by the CISO, and I'm like, hey, did you get this? And he's like, yeah, it's good. But what I really want to know about is what I heard this morning. TLS is broken. And I'm like, what? First I've heard of this. Like, so that's a feedback thing, and now I've got to make a new plan based off that feedback, right? He's like, yeah, I like the report, it was great, but I want to know about this now. And it turned out he was talking about the ROCA thing, where certain chipsets were using bad RSA libraries, not RSA itself, but the library inside the chipset was bad, and any keys that were made with it were bad. So the feedback portion is important because it gets you where you're going, but you need to make stuff actionable. I hate filtering things out. I might have bad indicators in there. I'll move them to the side, but I don't want to get rid of them, at least in the beginning. I don't want to ignore things just because I think it's not there, right? That's just bias. Oh, this is no big deal. It's just, you know, I come across a little, oh, these identity access cards are breached. Well, I'm trying to find out what's going on with TLS. Oh, that's no big deal, right? No, that actually told me everything I needed to know. But when I first looked at it, I was biased. I'm like, this isn't what I thought it was, right? When I first looked at it, I was like, this isn't TLS. Why do I care about this, right? Toss it to the side. Come back to it 3 hours later, and it's like, oh, that's exactly what I needed. It had all the information in it. So don't ignore something because you think it's not valuable. You know, at least skim it. Go through it first. And don't misstate the facts. Don't try to make a story that's not really the story you want to tell. But do sort, correlate, and validate. Especially validate. Validation Handbook is a really good book if you've never read it. It's designed for social media and emergency situations. But there's a lot of people out there that will just run a tool and either cuckoo or run it through payload.com, or I think it's payload security. They'll run it through something like that, and they'll take the entire indicator list, regardless of what it says. And that's where you get the Googles and the API IFEs and your IOC lists from other people. And they'll just drop it in because they didn't bother to go through and do the analysis process. They didn't bother, you know, they processed it, but they didn't analyze it. They didn't say, is this important? Is this something I should be looking at? They just said, oh, this is everything that I got from the malware, so it's all bad. Which again goes back to why I don't like paid data feeds. Because a lot of them don't validate and they just keep passing the garbage to the next level down. Build an alternative completing hypothesis. Try to get away from your own bias. So, anybody not know what ACH is? Please raise your hands if you don't know what one of these phrases are. But basically, this is how you would validate something, right? And it doesn't just have to be the IOC that you're trying to validate. It could be a case of commodity malware or a commodity event. One good example of this from the real world was an Imitel outbreak place I was at the time. Everybody was insisting that, oh, this is targeted to us because it matches our email formats and our signature formats. I walk in, I'm like, no, that's not targeted to us. It's commodity. Remember 20 people. I'm the only one that says no. And they're like, well, why? And I pull up a trust group that I'm in where they're all talking about the exact same email thread or the exact same attack. Well, because all these other people are seeing it too. So if it's targeted against us, then why are they targeting these other people? It was commodity, but the way it made it look, a lot of people just jump straight to it's targeted because their own personal biases, which isn't a bad thing, right? But don't just shoot somebody down because they say no. Anybody ever see 12 Angry Men? Everybody should have seen that. Great movie, one of my favorites. You had the one guy that said no at the beginning, and through the entire movie, he showed everybody their bias to make them realize why they were saying yes, kill this guy. Same concept, but this is a way better way of spending 12 hours arguing. Throw it up on a board and start saying, why is this good? Why is this bad? You know, is this hypothesis 1? It's attacking us specifically. Hypothesis 2, it's commodity. Hypothesis 3, it's commodity from stolen mailing list. And in this case, if you look at the hypothesis number 3 is the proper choice. And then when it comes to actually disseminating, make it a story. Don't just say, yeah, this is what it is. Be like Colin Powell. Tell me what you know. Tell me when you knew it. Somebody help me out here because it's been a while since I actually used this quote. Tell me what you know, tell me what you don't know, tell me which is which. And preferably when you knew it. When you're sharing it out, have a method to share it out with, right? So here I like using the traffic light protocol. Red, amber, green, white. Red means you don't share it with anybody, right? It's private to this room. It does not go beyond this point. Amber, you can share it with your organization to help spread the knowledge that needs to be known to other people within your organization. Green is pretty much anybody that you interact with. White is tell the whole world, right? Really simple. I really like it. If it's going to go to management, which would you send? Would you send a one-page brief or a multi-page report? Somebody. Yes, one page brief. And I'll show you what I put into a one-page brief. And I'd actually use the one-page brief as think of it as an executive summary and the first page of your report. Multi-page reports are great for other people, but not for going up the food chain. And then IOC hunt lists, you can create a list of IOCs and share it out that way. CVS files work great for that. Sharing the one-page brief. I like doing it on company letterhead. Give them an overview of the threat, why it matters to the company, give them your recommendations on how to fix the problem. Even if you have to go ask other people what their recommendations are and put it into the report, give them recommendations on how to fix the problem. Don't just give them a report and say, here's everything we know about this problem. It's like, okay, so what? You just drop more garbage on my plate without telling me how to take care of this garbage. That actually happened to a former coworker of mine. First time that person ever wrote a report, and executive management came back and said this is complete crap. Share the info and say how you're going to do it. If you're doing internal share only, use your internal methods. Eyes only, proprietary, confidential, business only. If it's going to go out to other people, use the traffic light protocol. And include where they can go and look, see some resources. And my last talk, they said, oh, you guys don't see this. Oh, that's weird. Okay, that's not working right. Okay, I'll make it available on my GitHub repository. It's basically a template. It's sitting here just looping through characters on the screen now. So I got this Word doc that just became much longer. It's like all pages of 2s. I have no idea why it's doing that. I wanted to show you what the template looked like. I'll put it on GitHub. It's the template I use. Feel free to modify it. Say it with pictures. Pictures matter. So if you remember earlier when I showed the Excel spreadsheet that had all the usernames, I took that same spreadsheet and I dropped it into a pivot table, which is just under the Insert tab on Excel. And then I did, after I got the stuff I wanted to know, I did some conditional formatting to give me colors, right? So I know that in May, somebody tried logging in 9 times as the displayed name. Other ones on the screen, I like these 2, because this is right after I gave the talk at Circle CityCon. So somebody went out and said, like, oh, let's try Circle CityCon for or is the username. Let's try Circle CityCon proof of concept. but make it pretty. I can look at this quickly, as long as I'm not colorblind, and say, okay, so this month, that was the biggest one. This month, that was the biggest one. This month, that's a little bit more orange than that yellow. I can look at names. So in June, I had the most tax. Or in June, this was actually the big guy because he is red. Normally, I colorize the bottom line too. And I've colorized the far side where it's showing the grand total on the one side. As Ernest was saying in the last talk, make it a box, right? It's a box. It's got multiple axes. I've got usernames on one side, dates across the top, and on the far side, I've got grand totals along across the bottom. Make it a picture. So again, we've got the picture of MISP, but you can see how things are interconnected, right? Link analysis is awesome. I've done talks previously on link analysis and what you can do with link analysis. It's fun, it's great, it's happy. And it makes a great picture. I can quickly go and see how things are tied together. Now you have to worry about data being validated at this point and not having invalid data mixed in with good data and things crossing, being contaminated, but it's a start. Sharing with others, right? Go to your ISACs, join your ISAC, share it there. Find a vouch-based system. Anybody ever heard of crimeware? I know at least a couple people have. I see some head shaking. Really hard to get into. I'm still not in it after 8 months of trying, so whatever. There's another one called miscreant punchers. It's a great list. But find a list that they don't just take anybody into, they have to be vouched in, have to be vetted in some way. You know, not just any Tom, Dick, or Harry can join. You know, you're sitting there saying, I know this person, I know where they work, I've worked with them in the past, I know their material. Share with each other. The first time I gave this talk, I told people to try and make friends in the audience. But I tried forcing it a little bit harder by saying, find people that work in your own industry and be friends with them. That's still a great idea. Find somebody that works in your industry, doesn't work in your company, or even if they do work in your company, make a new friend, share the data between each other. Because your red team might know something that you don't. You can give them something that they haven't seen yet. Share the data back and forth. And that's the end. Questions? Wow, Friday mornings are like Sundays. Yes? Both. So day by day, I go through tickets. Day by day, I go through some of the better feeds out there. I also go through the really bad feeds and say why we shouldn't be using these ones anymore. But then when something like WannaCry or Equifax or something big happens, it's drop what you're working on, go chase the big fire, then come back. Guy behind them. Yeah, so the two I mentioned, I can only partially hear you. One is crimeware. Crimeware. So, like something you would wear, C-R-I-M-E-W-A-R-E. The other one is, the full name is Roadhouse Miscreant Punchers. So, if you can find the right people and prove that they've worked with you in the past, they'll let you in. Everybody that I know that's been on there has been vouched by somebody that they've worked with in the past.